A poll time. We haven't done a poll in a little while, so let's do a poll here. Here we go. Let's see. Poll number 3. Who owned the clock tower factory and had a huge mansion, both on Atlantic Avenue? I'm going to launch this poll right here, and you've got 30 seconds. And it's Florence Nightingale, Florian Grosjean, John Pitkin Jr., or Daddy Warbucks. We've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pens up. All right. And yeah, the John Pitkin Jr. one was kind of tough. People, might think that, but it was Florian Grosjean. And shout out to the 2 people who love Daddy Warbucks. Florian Grosjean, and that. Here we go. Here's the results. Share the results. Sorry. Here, when you see that name Florian Grosjean for years when I was growing up, everyone thought it was pronounced Grosjean, right? That's how people said it, Grosjean. It's Grosjean. So here we go. So we're back to sharing. There he is himself. There's the man, Florian Grosjean. On our Zoom account, we use his picture as our little avatar. And we call him the man who built Woodhaven. You might be saying, well, what about Pitkin? Well, Pitkin, absolutely. You call him the founder, but Florian Grosjean was really the man who built Woodhaven. This is an accomplished man, and really there should be a street named after him. There should be a something for him. He began a tin factory here, and his background is very, very interesting. And this is an early look at the tin factory. You got to remember, this is a different factory that sit on the site, the one we're used to, the clock tower. There's a very, very early sketching of the factory that Grosjean would go on to own, and I think this was actually done before he bought it. It was a tool place called Sharp's Tools, and the thing is, these businesses, these factories, that was sitting empty, and he came and built it and built a town around it. You can see here, it says down at the bottom, it's kind of hard to read, original factory at Woodhaven, Long Island. There's the factory. There was the railroad right there, right along Atlantic Avenue. You see how the railroad would be crucial to businesses, right? This is something I really like. This is one of his patents, and it was a spoon. And I'm not saying that he invented the spoon. This has invented the process, a stamping process of creating spoons. And we have a few of them in our collection, the Historical Society, the spoons. And a lot of you may too, because people have said to me over the years, they had them around the house because they were creating them into the 50s. So, there's a lot of people that have these spoons around. It's funny, we've got a few for the Historical Society, but we have one of our own, and it's really nice and everything. And there's times I'm tempted, like when I'm making sauce or something, to use it. I mean, that's what it's there for, right? But I just feel funny, I guess using it. But this is his patent for it, and there's his signature down at the bottom. I remember the first time I saw this, I was so excited because I was really, I was familiar with his story, and I really inspected him, and just to see this down here, inventor, and see Florian Grosjean, his name, it was exciting. It was exciting to me. You're used to seeing signatures of like presidents and stuff in history. See his signature someplace was really very nice. The Lance and Grosjean factory. They make a lot of things. They make shovels, pans, kettles, spoons, forks. They made a lot of things with metal. And, the big thing is the agate nickel steelware. It's the type of utensils they were making, the type of steel they were using, and the type of enamel they were using in pots and in pans. And you'll see that they say it is perfectly safe. There's an emphasis on that, that you won't get poisoned. It's sure proof that no poison is found in the coating. Keep poison out of the kitchen. And that's because when some factories were making some of these utensils, pots and pans, there had been some careless efforts that led to some, sickness and death. So it was a very, very big selling point that if you eat out of this thing we give you, you're not going to die, So in any event, this is the kind of stuff that they made. This is their advertising, no poison. And they made, you can see the kind of things they made, it's pots and pans. We got a big pot. It's good, heavy stuff. In later years, they made those trays like you see in MASH, the food trays, right? They made those for the army there. And then on February 21st, 1876, of which next year is not quite the anniversary. I forget what anniversary it is, but next year's a big anniversary coming up on it. I think it's 145 years. The factory burned down. The factory burned down. To keep these fires going so hot, they had these vats of animal fat that were constantly burning. And because what they had the stamping process where they would melt the tin, the metal, and it would get spread out. And then as it was cooling down and it was flattened out on a marble, it would get stamped and shaped. And to keep that fire burning with the animal fat all the time, round the clock, what ended up happening was over years, the animal fat would get encrusted on the walls and the ceiling. Just from all the different pieces floating up around there. And all of that was highly flammable in a wood factory. It was a disaster waiting to happen, and the entire complex was destroyed. The last thing that went was a 2-story building. The last thing that went was the clock tower. The old wooden clock tower was the last thing that went down. People had come out from all over to watch it burn. And it was like 2 a.m. that the last big piece just kind of collapsed into the fire. Woodhaven could have died then, because at that point, most of your people in the community were there for the factory. I think it was something like 8 out of every 10. They were either working there, they were they had spouses that worked there, they had parents or children that worked there, they did business with it. I mean, everything was hovered around this factory, and now the factory just, boom, is gone. Is gone. And what Florian Grosjean did was he kept his workers on. He paid them, some of them he paid half salary just to stay. Others he paid and hired them to build a new complex. And this is what was built. Forget about what it says down here, 1921 Cliff Street, New York. That's where their headquarters offices were, in Manhattan. But this is what was on Atlantic Avenue. This is what we're all familiar with. There's the clock tower right there. This is the complex. It was huge. 3 floors, gigantic. And they built this clock tower high up on the 3rd floor because they wanted everybody to see it. They wanted everybody to know that this community was going to stay. It was not going to run. And this was built in like 8 months. It was up and running like in 8 months. It was amazing how fast they turned it around and got it going. And here it is. Here's an old picture of it. This is from the Woodhaven side. You can tell us, oh, look, there's no houses here, right? Here's an old picture of it. It's a nice picture of it here, where you can see the clock tower and you can see the railroad going along here. This is a park over here. So like this is like where Burger King is now. And this was a park that Florian Grosjean built for the community to use. He also built a library. He was a very generous man to the community, and that was a park over there. everyone's familiar with the clock tower, you know. So when you see this, you really recognize it. But now you look at how big the building is and all that. Here's a great photo of the Grosjean factory. You know, it looks a little bent. You know, this is like when you take on your phone, you take the panorama, and they never look right. You know, they never look right. Everything always looks bent, and that's what's going on here. You can see I've tried straightening it out. I'm not really good at it. Maybe someone could do it out there and has a good idea how to do it, but it's really difficult. But this is a great shot of this, and this is coming from like the back, not Atlantic Avenue. This is coming from the Ozone Park side, looking over. You know, looking at it. So Atlantic Avenue would be back here, and this is back here is University Place or 95th Avenue. And it's a good detailed photograph. You know, these pictures, these cameras in those days, they captured a lot of detail. Unfortunately, this picture has been exposed to the elements. You can see it's a little dirty. I don't even dare try and clean it, but we're going to try and do something with it. It's a beautiful photograph. You can see the building out there, you know, out there in the distance, and you can see over here. Here's the clock tower on the right. You know, again in the distance. And what's great about this picture is seeing the middle of it, seeing all the people that came out to get their picture taken, to be part of this. You know, they all came out. They were all probably told, hey, you know, at lunchtime, all come out. We're going to get your picture taken. And in those days, you know, the way those pictures are, you had to stand still because the exposure developed over a few seconds. And they all came out and stood still for this picture. This is a little snapshot of life in Ozone Park. You know, who knows how many years ago? Very, very long time ago. Look at that beautiful picture. Big, beautiful factory. This is a map that we have, like a blueprint of the factory, and it is very detailed. It is a lot of fun. Again, if you like maps, if you like blueprints, this is one of those digital photographs that you can really zoom in close on. You know, what's nice about it, I thought I included it in here, but right up at this spot up here, it gives the tower, and it says the tower is 70 feet tall. That's what it says there. And you've got the little walkways across there, and it tells you what all the different rooms were. This down here is the enameling house. I mean, you could really tell where everything is in here. It's a great map and a great look at a historic building which we're lucky to have some of it still standing. We'll look at it in a little while. The Grosjean Mansion. Now, you know, Florian Grosjean, you know, he made a lot of money. He was a rich man, and he had a magnificent mansion and grounds here in Woodhaven. Right over here, first of all, this is an overhead view of Woodhaven and Ozone Park. You see Woodhaven Boulevard coming down here. Across here is Atlantic Avenue. Over here is that little spur that goes off right behind and over here is the depot over here. And there's the Rockaway branch. That little spur that cuts off, that's like for the buses. Yeah, those little dots in there, those are all school buses in there. But over here, this is his grounds where he had his factory. And over here was where he had his mansion. His mansion was very, very close to the factory, right here in Woodhaven, right over here on Woodhaven Boulevard and Atlantic Avenue. And there it is. You know, this is a terrific etching of the factory. The one thing I'll be honest, the one thing that kind of bothers me about this picture is these big hills in the background here. You know, I know we have hills up in Forest Park, but they wouldn't be that close. I think that's just more maybe artistic license. But in any event, you know, you look at this and you're getting a snapshot of what this place looked like, and this is where the mansion grounds would be today on Atlantic, right off Woodhaven Boulevard. And you know, it was such an impressive looking place that they had these this article here talking about the railroad that it goes in. What a nice view you get to see of the Grosjean grounds, the beautiful house, the greenhouse that they had, which they said produced the most beautiful flowers. And it was famed in the area for how beautiful the greenhouse was. And there's a gazebo down there, and there are lakes on the property. And just looking at now here on Atlantic Avenue, a horse and carriage, and of course the railroad going by. Must have been really beautiful. Can you imagine that? How it must have looked? It must have been absolutely gorgeous. We're so lucky to have this etching, because we don't have any pictures that look anything like this. We get close-ups of the mansion and stuff, and you see different things, but this is really something special. Now, to talk about the Florian Grosjean and his family, you have to understand that despite his wealth, there was some tragedy in there. A little stuff about Mr. Florian Grosjean. He was born in Saul, Switzerland, January 12th, 1824. So his 200th birthday is coming up. He moved to France, and he worked for Lalande. And it's interesting, because what happened was he moved to New York in 1850, and this next sentence here, formed partnership with Lalande, says it's a little bit more complicated than that, because he came here actually with one Lalande who ended up dying, and a second Lalande, his brother, came to New York to continue and set up the partnership. But he was very, very much a absent partner, because he was only in New York one time when they formed the partnership, and then he came back in once more in later years. Other than that, he was absent and was back in France. Florian Grosjean ran the whole show here, and he moved to Woodhaven in 1863, which is when he got the factory, the tin factory, going. He was married to Eugenie Rousselot in 1856. Alfred was born in 1857. That's his son Alfred, and Alice was born in 1860. So he had two children. Eugenie dies in 1867. Alfred's 10, Alice is 6, and Florian Grosjean never remarried. He was, by all accounts, very, very much involved in raising his children, and loved them very much. Alfred was a very, very bright, energetic young man, sportsman, and he was working in the Grosjean factory, and was very well respected, and was beginning the process of taking over the business from his father. And he went on a fishing trip with a friend of his down to Florida, and while they were down there in Florida, they disappeared. They were in a boat, and they were going to go down the Hornassa River, and that was it. They disappeared. Florian Grosjean and the other boy who disappeared, Edwin Perrin, who was a friend of young Grosjean, the fathers went down to Florida and to take part in the search. And before they had arrived, their bodies were found. No explanation was ever given as to what happened or how they died. But the heir to the Grosjean factory and business was the presumed heir, and Alfred was dead. In his memory, this is 1888, when they had a funeral. I mentioned to you that Charles Lalande only came to Woodhaven twice to form the partnership, and again when Grosjean's son died, he came back to America to visit his partner. And Florian Grosjean, he donated a site and money, and built a church, Woodhaven New Church, a congregational church at Woodhaven, which is to contain a memorial of the late Alfred E. Grosjean. And here's an article about this church, and it actually ministered to a lot of the people who worked in the factory. It was a French church. And when they built that factory, they brought over a lot of French workers from France. And this is the French Evangelical Church of Woodhaven that was built by Florian Grosjean. and it was within short walking distance of his mansion. He was very, very deeply hurt by his son's passing, and they said that he walked to the church every day, every morning, and even in the winter, they said he would trudge through the snow and go there and go to the church and pray for his son. Here's a close up of the church that was built. It's not a great picture, right? Well, luckily, this building is still standing. A French Evangelical Church of Woodhaven is still standing in Ozone Park, and here it is here, the True Jesus Church, and that's over on 96th Street and 95th Avenue, right over there. Look at that. That's the church all these years later that Florian Grosjean built for his son. Now I know what you might be saying. You might be saying it don't look really the same. You know, if you're looking at them, certainly it don't look the same. But what I want you to concentrate on is forget this part over here. I think I can draw this part. Let me see if I can use this. Draw. Okay. No. Here we go. All right. Forget this part over here. That part was torn down. It's this part over here that remained. This is the part that remained. Take a look at that little half window. Take a look at these 3 windows right here, and you'll see what I mean now. Hold on. There it is right there. You know, this is the part right here. This was added afterwards. Everything that was over here was removed. Everything was built here. And this building itself, there's an article which talks about this. This building was actually over here more. It was lifted up and was moved. It was moved. They actually kept that. So that's the original building. So if you ever see that now, you'll know that was built for Florian Grosjean's son. It's nice that it's still there. Here's an article in the newspaper telling you that Mr. Florian Grosjean is not seriously ill. He's now 75 years of age. But as soon as you see an article like that, you know there must be something going on. He had left Woodhaven, and he was now living in another home that he had in Brooklyn on Skemmerhorn Street. And then finally, in 1903, Florian Grosjean dies of double pneumonia. So it says here he had been invalid for 4 years. So he hadn't been in very, very good health. His business is then taken over by his son-in-law. So his daughter Alice married this guy here, Augustine Cortier, and who's got, in all the years that I've been researching history, he's got one of the best mustaches that I've seen. He takes over the business, and you know, the thing is, right away, you know that there's a lot of postcards, and his name is stamped all over them. The Cortier residence. It's no longer the Grosjean Mansion. You know, it's the Cortier residence. But I tell you, these give you a really, really good look at the building itself. I like this picture a lot because if you ever wanted to try and build like a small model of what the house must have looked like, this would be a good place to start, right, for a blueprint. You really got to look at the intricacies. I like these little windows in here, and I like this little, you've got windows here, and then you've got kind of like this little tower thing here with these extra windows, and then finally up here on the top. It's really a very interesting looking house. This is the lake in Cortier's Park in Woodhaven, Long Island. And the A.J. Cortier residence in Woodhaven, Long Island. And you can see it's got the fountains and all this. You know, again, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful home. But, you know, here's the thing. He doesn't last much longer. He dies young at 53 years of age. He does not last long. So the Grosjean business, which had a strong head in Florian Grosjean and a presumed successor in Alfred. Then when Alfred dies, you've got the son-in-law takes over, but he does not last long, and that kind of starts the long, slow decline of the Grosjean business, the Grosjean factory, and certainly the mansion itself, which starts to get dismantled shortly after this and sold. So here's the Woodhaven Landmark sold, and this is probably around 1912 or something like that. And they start really just taking everything apart, and the grounds were parceled off and sold into lots, and houses were built, and people moved in. And it says in here that after Mr. Grosjean's death, the property was occupied by Mr. Cortier, his son-in-law, with his wife and family. The mansion was a scene of many noteworthy social events up to the time of Mr. Cortier's death. After this, the Cortier family moved to Brooklyn, where they now reside. So the family basically moved, back to Brooklyn, and the mansion and the property was empty and started to fall in disrepair. And then it was sold off, and that was it. It was gone. And parts of the factory, after a while, also started to shut down. And you could see they had sales going on all over the place, selling property. So what we had in a big manufacturing center and a factory, ended up being pieces of it. You've got this piece right here, and then you've got another piece which is further down. But the rest of the whole complex is all gone. It's all gone. Luckily we've got some photographs which can give us an idea what it looked like. Right here, you're looking underneath one of those walkways, and if you could see up on this side, you'd look up, you would see the clock tower. This is looking across toward from Ozone Park to Woodhaven in what is now Stop and Shop. This is actually an old picture. It still says Pathmark up there. But in the Stop and Shop now, looking across there, you'd have the walkway across there to the factory that would be over here on this side. See all the muddy streets. That's right here. We're looking down this street right here. I think this is 92nd, looking down towards Atlantic. And this is the other side of the factory that's still there. This is the place you go for the Christmas trees and for the Halloween costumes and stuff. But then the rest of the year they sell pianos. It's a beautiful looking building on the inside. I was there. This is a while back, but they let me kind of walk around the place and upstairs where they have the pianos that they're repairing. It's very, very interesting up there because the lower floors, which are absolutely beautiful, the flooring looks great, the walls look great, everything looks terrific. But the upper floor, really, that's the kind of like the workshop. Not a lot of work's been done up there. So what you're seeing up there is a lot closer to what the factory workers of days gone by used to see. And actually, here's a nice article that they had framed and on the wall, about the Grosjean estate. Was once the showcase of Woodhaven there. And when you look through this, when they built this factory, one of the things that they wanted to make sure was that it would never burn down. So, when you walk through there, when you go there the next time, God willing soon, for Halloween or for Christmas, and you're up on that second floor, you're going to walk through these doorways. You walk through them all the time. You never think about them, maybe. But if you look up, you see these little rollers on them. These are fire doors. These are fire doors. So in the event of a fire, that was one of the things they didn't have in the other factory. But again, the other factory was wood. It was just destined to burn down. This one here, you got these. Someone's requesting. There we go. You got these doors that come across, and they would prevent the fire from spreading. A short way down Atlantic Avenue, you go down. You can go into Brooklyn, and if you go down there, you're going to see two streets. in Brooklyn. One of them is Alice Court, and one of them is Agate Court. They're side by side, one right after the other. These were streets in which Florian Grosjean bought homes, and had the same man who built, was involved in building a lot of the factory and a lot of Grosjean's other stuff. He built these homes here, and you have Agate Court, named after his product, agate ware, and then there's the nice building here. These have been landmarks, by the way. These blocks. Alice Court, named after his daughter Alice, is over in Brooklyn. And if you go down that far and you keep on going, you can go to Greenwood Cemetery, where you can visit Florian Grosjean's grave. I don't know that many people actually go and visit his grave. It's a nice area, and with all of the big monuments that you see in a cemetery, it was nice to see Florian Grosjean's really pretty much plain, simple, understated monument there. You've got the Grosjean name, and then you've got three graves. You got the graves underneath, and you've got Eugenie, his wife, you got Florian Grosjean himself, and then his son, Alfred Grosjean. And if you're looking at it from this angle, if you do go and visit, it would be a fun thing to get a few people and go. Greenwood's a great cemetery to walk around. If you're here looking at the Grosjean monument, and you look in the background right here, not far from where they are, and we didn't know because we weren't even looking for this. We just happened to spot this while we're standing there. You can see over there, there's another much bigger thing, the Cortier crypt. So, a couple years after Grosjean dies, Mr. Cortier is probably standing over this and seeing this, but he may have already built that for him and his family already, and knew it was one day it would be his, and it wasn't too long that he found himself in there. We went there. Those doors were locked, but we could actually look in there. And you see down here, here's Auguste Cortier. This is Augustine Cortier Jr. His son also died at a very young age. His son was a sporting man, and he died of a heart attack at a young age. Over here is Alice Cortier. This is Florian Grosjean's daughter. She lived to be 77 years old, died in 1937, and this is her daughter Alice, and then she died in 1974. She's the last of the line down here. She had no children. She married. I forget what the name is. I can't really see it down here. But she married, died in 1974. Last in line. And as you can see in here, no one had visited for quite a long time. They sit pretty much just forgotten, except for us here tonight. And we have this sign here on Atlantic Avenue talking about the Lance and Grosjean factory. But it certainly would be nice to get a street named after this man at some point. Let's move on to the people on the border. I hope you're enjoying this. It's kind of different doing it like this when we don't have like feedback from people. I really do enjoy when we're out at the Avenue Diner or Nearest Tavern or someplace, to get that feedback. But I hope you're all enjoying this. So let's take a look at the people on the border here. This is a great picture. It's a postcard that was created back in the old days. Woodhaven, Long Island, in the future. And this is University Place, 95th Avenue, looking west of Park Place. And you look at this picture, and this is what they pictured the future looking like, and it's kind of crazy looking, but it's fun, and we'll be coming back to that picture in a few minutes. But here's old Woodhaven Village, built around a pot factory. Now this article is 1979. So this article is 40 years old, but it's a great article. Full a lot of good information, and it's covering this whole area again, south of Atlantic Avenue, the old Woodhaven Village, and it has some photos. Again, these photos are from the late 70s. But just to give you an idea, these houses have been around for a very, very long time. They're saying these Victorian buildings, 19th century. And again, a lot of these houses, you might not think much of them as you're passing by them. You're not really looking for it in that context because you're not really aware. But now, when you're in this area um, behind Stop and Shop, and you see these houses, it's definitely worth taking a look around, because you're gonna see some really nice gems. These are houses. They look like they're like old little like farmhouses from the old days. This is actually one of the early residents of Woodhaven, the Jones family on 93rd Street. Um, and you can see it. There it is on the left, and there it is in the right. Just a beautiful old farmhouse, and we'll see this one again later on. These are the row houses. You get a lot of these houses here that were built like these ones here that were built by the Grosjean factory for the workers. So these houses along here, along 95th Avenue, they were built for the workers of the Grosjean factory. They came over here and they stayed there. They paid their rent to the factory. So they not only had the employees, but now they had tenants. This is just a fantastic picture of University Place. One of these postcards that just has a lot of detail. Again, this is 95th Avenue, right behind Stop and Shop, looking from like Woodhaven Boulevard towards towards that way. Here you go. That's a good idea. Right there, you see the difference. You see the then and now. And there's so much detail in this picture, but one of my favorite little details is just right down here. There's like this mother and child. It's just a little moment in their lives that end up in a little postcard. It looks cold. I don't know if it's cold, but it looks cold in that picture. And that's them walking along there, walking along this back way. And then you have this beautiful, beautiful building here. Take a look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. When you see buildings like that, and you see how they look, you're really mightily impressed. This is what we used to be able to build. So here we go. We have a poll, and the poll is going to be about this building right here. So get your pens up, and I was still sharing that damn thing. All right, oh, sorry. Here we go. What was this building originally? Pens up. You got 30 seconds. Was it the Woodville Hotel? Was it Shoe and Leather University? Or was it the First Bank of Woodhaven? Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, pens up. Oh yeah, pens down, sorry. And here we go. So this was close. So this one, we had 9 votes for the Woodville Hotel. We had 2 votes for Shoe and Leather University, and we had 14 votes for the correct answer, the First Bank of Woodhaven. This was the first. This was the first bank of Woodhaven here, and as such, this area was very, very busy. 95th Avenue, or University Place, was an extremely busy place. There was a lot of activity there. You had this bank, but you had businesses along there. You had hotels. You had bakeries. You had places where people lived. You had taverns. There was drinking. It was outside a factory. So think about all the factory workers coming out here and milling along that road. And it was a very, very busy stretch of land. And that's what it looked like then. And there's the Wyckoff name on that building. And here's another building on 95th Avenue. I love this picture. This is W.B. Ireland's Woodhaven Pharmacy, and I believe the caption for this said it was there was some sort of a political rally, which you can tell anytime the men get together with all their hats, right? They're all standing there. there, and there you see they've all got things on their chest there. So some kind of gathering. You can see people up in the upper windows at W.B. Ireland's Woodhaven Pharmacy. Here's a picture of that same building in the 1940s. You know, you could see the two windows up here. You know, this is where you see things. Two windows up here, and then there's this little cute window up here. I'll go back. You can see here's the two windows, and you can see the little cute window up there. And then over here, it stretches over. This place over here, this building still is standing, and you're probably more familiar with it looking like this, Jimmy Burns' Wee Pub, which is W.B. Ireland's from the old days. Let's take a look at that again. This is mind-blowing. This is great. There's our Woodhaven Pharmacy. And there's Jimmy Burns' Wee Pub. It's just great. You can see they've closed over all this. We were upstairs there for like a Sweet 16 party. They have parties up there. There's a hotel that was along 95th Avenue. This picture is from a private collection. The Hennon family sent this to us. It's the Hotel de Paris, and it's too long of a story to get into now. But that's where their grandfather, I believe it was their grandfather, came here, was working here, and that was where he met his wife. So like their grandparents met there, the Hotel de Paris. In fact, I think their family owned it. This is a great picture because you see this building, you know, all the time when you go back along there. Look at this. This is the Polish American Club, and there it is there back when it was the Hotel de Paris. This was a wines and liquors. You know, this is great when you see this, and you know, again, you know, you just look for those little details. Look at this pole, you know, that's outside the store, and see how it has that little lip there around the bottom that these people are all standing around, and you look and you see it, you know, today, and you see it. It's great. I really like those little things, those little details that prove that what you're looking at is what you're seeing back then. If you go down that block where these two gentlemen are walking down here, if you head down that way, you'll see on the wall an old faded painted sign there for boarding house and restaurant. It was a very, very busy area. A lot of activity. And in fact, over here, if you look over at the left, again, this is University Place, 95th Avenue, the Eagle Hotel. This building over here was a hotel, and over here it says bakery. This is the bakery. I read a story about that bakery. They said the workers used to line up outside that bakery in the mornings to get their hot roll before they, you know, for their breakfast. It was a very, very popular bakery. So they chose this spot because it was a busy spot of town. And that's what it looks like today. You know, again, look at the top. Look at the top over here. This is the Hotel Eagle. And look at the top over here. We'll do this side first, okay? We're going to do this left-hand side over here. Hotel Eagle. I'm just going to go. Boom. Boom. See the top? Boom. Boom. Now look over at the right. Look how that little thing comes up here. Boom. 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 Amazing. This is what they thought the future was going to look like. This is what it looked like. we try and make it look like the future did look that way after all. So there we go. Further along University Place, you'll start seeing some old clippings in the newspapers talking about the Woodhavens, the young Woodhavens, and the Woodhaven AC, the Woodhaven Athletic Club. And there's the Woodhaven Athletic Club there, right along 95th Avenue. It's a great group of guys there. They have a terrific building, established 1895. 1895, making this year is the 125th anniversary for them. And back there, they have the Woodhaven Athletic Club, the hall. What a beautiful hall! Very, very old-fashioned. I mean, you could picture something like if there's a movie director out there looking for a set for a place that looks like it could be like the 1940s or 50s. Here you go. There you go. Just come on in. And back here in I think this one was from like the early 60s. 25 men were fined $2 in a naughty movie raid. They were showing A naughty movie. They actually had a ticket taker. That's classic. When you're showing a naughty movie and you actually have a ticket taker, that's some party. The Woodhaven Athletic Club also paid great honor to one of their members, John Backus. He was a high school student from Richmond Hill High School, um, and he was killed in action in World War One. And there were lots of articles about how he was just very, very popular, a popular young man. American Legion every year at Memorial Day, they put out crosses in their front yard for their members who have passed on. It's called the Garden of Remembrance. It's a beautiful thing to see. There's a monument that they have in their front yard. Remember all the way back at the beginning when I was talking about the memorial trees and how there was a monument up there? Well, this is where the monument from there ended up. It ended up in this front yard. And if you look closely at it right there, there's John Backus. He's the second name. Give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second here. All right, there's John Backus. And that means that when we decorate those trees each year, one and actually more than one of those young men who were killed was from Ozone Park. So when we do this next year, when we're able to do this again, please, come out and join us. We'd love to have Ozone Park join us because these soldiers represent, these flags and these trees represent their soldiers. The fire brigade. This is a picture that a gentleman sent to me from his family's private collection, and this was a blacksmith shop along Rockaway Boulevard. And one of the reasons I show this is because a lot of the businesses back then, there was a lot of fire involved. there was a lot of fire involved in everything they did back then. It was one of the easiest sources of energy and power. Right? They could start fires. They could do things with it. But fires sometimes get out of control, and because of that, you need a fire brigade. This is a tremendous story right here about a fire that broke out over a row of bakeries. They were completely destroyed. Bakeries, butchers, different shops, and everyone escaped. And the fire brigade showed up. And when they showed up, what they found out was that there was a baby up in one of the bedrooms on the second floor. So there was a young fireman, Adam Bush, who everyone just thought there was no chance. The bottom floors were all just as complete, all burnt out. And what he ended up doing was, it says here, he entered one of the houses that hadn't been set on fire yet, and he ran up to the roof and then ran along until he got above the room in which the baby was in. Then he swung down and into the window, came in, grabbed the baby, and then he went out and he passed the baby down to a fireman, and the crowd erupted in cheers. And then he came out and was climbing up and was trying to get back up to the roof when the whole front of the building collapsed. The gutter broke. It says here, both his legs were broken, one in 3 places, and he received several internal injuries. He was removed to a neighboring residence where he was attended to by Dr. Combs, who entertained serious doubts concerning his recovery. Dr. Combs is notorious in our history as being a doctor that his patients never really seemed to survive. So if he had Dr. Holmes working on him, he was in bad shape. But Adam Bush, he gave his life so this baby could live. It's a tragic story and also a really heroic one. And this is where it happened over here. This is like across the border in Woodhaven, over here by the garages, where across from Burger King, let's say, and the gas station. over there, and that's where this fire happened. A tremendous story of bravery and a great story. There were lots of fires, lots and lots of fires in Woodhaven at that time, and it was getting out of control. And Florian Grosjean, he made a lot of donations to the volunteer fire department. And there's the Woodhaven Fire Department. There's the first chief engineer there, first Captain Singer. Now again, this came from the private collection of a gentleman whose grandfather was in there. His father and grandfather were in the Woodhaven Fire Department, and this is them with their horse and dog. This is also the same people. This is very, very interesting. This man right here, I don't know this man's name. This man is this man's father. This man right here is named William F. Buckley. No relation to the political commentator, but this is William F. Buckley, and he was a member of the Woodhaven Fire Department, and that's these two same men in this picture right here. Just right here, many number of years later, the young boy had grown up. In fact, you can see them there a little bit close up here in this picture here, and then right here you can see, look at the faces right here. You got the walrus mustache there, and then the son a little bit older. They were members of the Woodhaven Fire Department over there. The Woodhaven Fire Department, you had over here the exempts, what they call the volunteer, the exempt firemen. And what that word, the exempt, meant was that when you were a volunteer fireman, you were exempt from certain things. You were exempt from certain taxes. You were exempt from jury duty, certain things like that. And this was their headquarters, the headquarters of the volunteer fire department. They had a gymnasium in there, and all the gym equipment came from the Florian Grosjean Augustine Cortier Mansion. Alice, when she was getting out of there, she gave the billiard table, all the gymnastic equipment all went to the volunteer fire department building. There it is there, the Woodhaven Exempt Firemen's Association, but now it says Ozone Park down here. And look up here, look at this statue up here. You'll see it up here right at the front. It's a beautiful building. And when you look at these buildings, you look at these three windows right up here. You got this window here and you got this window here, but this middle window is just a little bit higher. See how that is? Just a little bit higher. And you got the statue up here. Here's a picture years later. Again, the middle window is that little bit higher. And here's that building today. You've all seen this on 101st Avenue. You got the two windows. Look at that little one. It's that little bit higher. Still, all these years later, this is the same building. And remember the statue they had up there on the top? I want you to take a look over here in that corner. Look over there, and what you'll see is a statue peeking over. Amazing. History right in front of us. Always up there. Always up there. Moving along, we're going to take a look at the murder of Professor Kotkov. This is a really horrifying story. Woodhaven man beating with iron bar dying. This was a story that absolutely captured the imagination of New York. Not just Woodhaven, New York. This was in all the papers. This was a big story. There was a man who was beaten to death with an iron bar. He went to the hospital. He lasted like 36 hours. And four men were arrested for his attack. These are the train steps he came down. This was 88th Street, Boyd Avenue. It was just Boyd Avenue by then, and he was a professor of theology, and he was Jewish, and he was at a seminary or a theology place in the city, and he was on his way home, and it was late at night, and he came down these steps, and underneath these steps there were four young men waiting, and as he walked home, he walked along Liberty Avenue. Again, this was still considered Woodhaven in those days. Even this is 1920s, it was still considered Woodhaven. He was walking along Liberty, And these four young men started to follow him. And the man, whose name was Professor Kotkov, the one thing that he did that his wife had always asked him not to do was he cut across a field. You see, he got off the train here and at 88th Street on Liberty, and he walks over here, and his house is on 87th Street up half the way, except there were no houses at that time. These houses did not exist. In fact, I have this house here in yellow because an eyewitness to the crime was looking out her window here and witnessed it. It happened over here. And we went to the 1924 overhead view, and you can actually see where there was, there was room for a path here, because this is 1924. It's only 3 years after the attack, and this is where the house was where the woman witnessed this. And this is where this all happened, right here. So all of this back here was all gone. He crossed here, and these four young men attacked him and brutally beat him with a metal pole. Now the police were on the scene pretty quick, and they arrested two young men who were standing by watching to see what was going on, and they arrested them. And then when they were brought in, they gave up the other two guys. Two of them were from Woodhaven, two of them from other places. This is the path that Professor Kotkov took. And here's his house. Now his house is still standing. His wife lived there until after the trial, and then she packed up her children and left, and then not much was heard from her after that. She's not buried with her husband, so we can assume maybe she remarried. There was a call for swift justice, and justice was indeed swift. They went from 49 days from the night of the attack until the first day of the trial. 49 days. That meant they had an arrest, an indictment, a trial. They started the trial, and right away, the star witness came on was Professor Kotkov's wife, and she gave testimony, and she fainted when his belongings were brought in to see how she was, and the first young man who was on trial, Peter Nunziata, he was a very cocky figure. He was, you can see here in this headline, he was puffing a cigarette in court, which they took away from him, and he was smirking at the jury. He was 17 years old. He was 17 years old, and here's a snapshot of him here. He was yawning. He was really mugging it up, and he did not make a good defendant. So he was found guilty of killing Kotkov, and he was sentenced to the electric chair. And it took about 2 years, but he went to his death. And actually, there's a very, very gripping article about his last night. His family came to see him, and they were kept apart by two fences. By two fences, they could not reach out and touch each other. With his last money that he had left over, he had become friendly with another man on death row, a Japanese man who was on death row, and he asked that his money be used to buy a meal for his friend, and he went to death. That was in Sing Sing, Old Sparky. And once he went into the chair, they asked him, and his family was in attendance, and but the family, they told him, you have to go now, and he tried to comfort him. He told him, he said, hey, I'm glad my troubles are soon over, and then he said, I'm ready, and that was it, and he was executed. After that, the second boy went on trial, Alfano. Now the first boy said, hey, not guilty, and he got the chair. He got the death sentence. The second boy, when he went on trial, he said, hey, I had nothing to do with this, and he was also found guilty and eventually put to death in the electric chair. The other two boys that were on trial, as soon as they saw that the first two were convicted, they both pled guilty and were sentenced for many years. They were spared the chair. The Cyclone of 1895, this was the 125th anniversary this year. We were hoping to do a walking tour of the area, but this was a huge storm that came through and and swept through Woodhaven. But a great deal of the damage was done in what is today in Ozone Park, especially the schoolhouse at University Place, 95th Avenue and Rockaway Road. And it was just a complete disaster area, with houses knocked over on their sides, some houses destroyed, just a general chaos all over the place. And it's a colorized slide, but it gives you an idea of what it looked like. The schoolhouse that was torn down. This happened in July. Had this happened on a school day, we'd be telling a much different story tonight. There's a little thing here talking about how the one place that really profited off this were the saloons. The saloons were filled with beverages, and people wanting to just forget their sorrows just flocked to the places. And they said they did drove a roaring trade. So that's our Woodhaven and Ozone Park residents from 125 years ago. When the place nearly got torn apart, they went out and got loaded. There was a close shave here, and this is interesting because it says here William F. Buckley's boy had a narrow escape. Remember that boy we saw before with Mr. Buckley? I talked about there how a big chunk of a building came down and landed right down in front of them. There they are there. There's a lot of great descriptions about what went on there. There was a cow that was lifted up. See, the storm came in over Cypress Hill Cemetery and hit Jamaica Avenue, about where Frank and Kay Lane is, and it started overturning the trolley cars, the electrified trains down there, and then coming in the lane, it was pulling up telephone poles and knocking down trees and all this stuff, doing all its damage all the way through, right through to where we see the majority of it was done at that school. And there was a woman there, Louise Petrosian, I guess I'm pronouncing it right, who was killed in the tornado. And we don't have a picture of her, but we do have a sketch. And it talks about what happens to her there. She heard the wind starting to howl up. And she got up and she went out to see what was going on. And she wanted to warn her mother, and she was struck in the head by a plank of wood, and she was killed instantly. She was 16 years old. She was just recently married to a young man who worked in the Florian Grosjean factory. About 100,000 people came to Woodhaven to see the destruction, they say, and a lot of them wanted to come and see the spot where the young woman was killed. For many years, they listed Louise Petrosian as the only victim of this cyclone. But in here, you see it says yet another fatality was added to the list of casualties. 5-year-old Johnny Kolb succumbed to his injuries shortly after 2 o'clock yesterday morning. We're still not 100% sure of that. But I mean, it's in the paper, but sometimes things are sketchy in the paper. And in the old days, they had things that So I think we have to still pin it down. But it seems like there was 2 deaths that day: a young boy and a young woman. And this is where the school is. The school was torn down. It was a school for years. And the thing is, if you see the destruction that was done to that building, it was all up top. The bottom part, the basement, the footprint is pretty much the same as it was the school in those days. And that was for many years, and that was the Friendly Frost. People remember that right in Rockaway over there. Different building, but same, basically the same footprint. And over here, this is where we found actually the very, very spot where Louise Petrosian lost her life. This over here was the school. It was a beam that came from the school. It flew over here, and this was her house over here. She came out the side door, and it says here where the girl was killed in Woodhaven. She came out the side door, and it was when she was walking down these steps that she was hit. people came to this house afterwards to her. They had her wake inside, and she was laying in the coffin, and they were being sold for 10 cents roses that they would go in and put on her body. And then every once in a while they would close up for a little bit, and they would take the roses and resell them to people coming in, and they would walk out the front door. And these steps right here where she was killed, these are these steps right here to this day. This was her house. This is where they went in, viewed her body, and came out this door over here. And this would be the view from basically from in front of her house, and the beam would have come over this way. And we're going to wrap this up with just one more thing. and I chose Mr. Colombo there because a lot of what we end up doing is indeed detective work. You've got to go digging, and you've got to go where the evidence takes you. Sometimes you can make some jumps, and it's fun to make those, and sometimes those jumps turn out to be true. Sometimes they don't. So you've always got to peck away and find these things. And this is one of those great stories. I showed you this a while back. The tombstone of Mary Eldert, wife of Eldert. Died April 12th, 1891, aged 91 years and 14 days. So she was quite old for those days. And this tombstone here, I'll come back in a second. What happened was I was at Nears. I had just given a presentation, and a gentleman by the name of Ronnie Niles, a really nice guy, really nice guy. He was involved with the dog run. For years, him and his wife Noreen, terrific people. He stops me at Nears and he says, "Hey, I'm a resident of Woodhaven." He goes, "I've got a dead body in my yard. Would you be interested in hearing about this?" I said, "Would I ever? Absolutely, yeah, please." So we start talking, and he tells me that he's got this tombstone in his backyard where there's over the spot where there's a woman buried, Mary Eldert. And obviously the Eldert name is of interest to us in the area, but it was also of interest to us, being we were involved with the cemetery, because I showed you in the beginning that big tall monument, the Eldert monument. So I was like, yeah, okay, tell me more. And he said, well, he didn't know. He wasn't around in 1891 to know exactly what happened, but it had been passed down from owner to owner, I guess, and that Mary Eldert was shunned from being buried in the 96th Street Cemetery that we were maintaining. She was not allowed, but instead she was buried here on some farmland on 86th Street. And the reason that was given to these owners was that she had cheated on her husband, which was seemed really I don't know, really harsh, right? So, but in years afterwards, there were numbers of sightings of a ghost along 86th Street near Park Lane South, mostly on the Niles property, but in and around the area, they saw a woman, a spectral vision, just walking. You catch a quick glimpse of her, and people there were genuinely spooked about the ghost of Mary Eldert, wife of Eldert. And the thinking was that because she was not buried, she was denied burial with her family, that her spirit was not at rest. This is where she was. We were told that she was buried, and the tombstone was there, and they were very, very gratefully, helped out and had some of their friends come and transport the tombstone from 86th Street back over to 96th Street, so that we could begin the process of putting it back. And what we did was we weren't gonna dig up Mary. We didn't know what. I mean, listen, there was already a ghost walking around, right? So if we start, we don't start digging up and just. So we didn't. We felt we were doing best. We scooped up a bunch of the earth and put it into a jar and brought it over with us, so that it would represent. It would be a stand-in for Mary Eldert, and we would bury that. And then that's them putting it down by the tree, and that's where you see it. It's by the tree. Mary Eldert, wife of Eldert. And here's her obituary. You know, a little death announcement. April 10th, 1891. So here we see this, but once we started digging into this, we started finding some troubles with the story. First of all, the historian for the Historical Society, Mr. Alan Smith, he had pointed out, and actually in that newspaper article, he kind of was skeptical about it, but the land itself was not Eldert land. It wasn't Eldert farmland. So it seemed kind of odd that she would be buried there. And then what happened was, here's a bit more of the obituary. She's wife of Eldert, aged 91 years. She was a member of her church for 70 years. Her husband, Eldert, was a soldier in the War of 1812. And it said Mrs. Eldert had for many years received a pension from the United States government on account of her husband's services. You see, he died many years before. He left her kind of a young widow. So if she was being denied entrance to the cemetery, it was because of something that she must have done 50 years before. It just wasn't adding up. And as a matter of fact, in here, it talks about when she died, about her sons and the daughter and stuff, and mentions the Jones family. Remember the Jones family showed the earliest settlers. A lot of these families were all kind of marrying each other, and her daughter Elizabeth Lott is the one we're going to talk about next. One of our members, Stacy, she sent me there's the Jones homestead we're doing. Sent me this article talking about this curious will of Elizabeth Lott. Elizabeth Lott is the daughter of Mary Eldert, and Elizabeth, when she died about 10 years after her mother, and when she died, her will said, hey, I can't be buried in the 96th Street place, because that place by that time, cemetery was dying itself, and it was going out of business. So what happened was they couldn't be buried there. So she bought a plot over in Kew Gardens, Maple Grove Cemetery, the beautiful Maple Grove Cemetery. And if you're not familiar with the Friends of Maple Grove, it's a great organization. Look them up. They do great stuff. And the leader there, Carbolan, is a terrific historian. Go check him out. But she wanted to be buried there, but she didn't want to be buried there all by herself. So in her will, she left money so that her family members could be exhumed and moved and buried with her. And it mentions in here, Eldert and Mary Eldert were moved from there. There it is, Eldert and Mary Eldert, father and mother, were moved from the Woodhaven Cemetery and moved over here to the cemetery in Kew Gardens under a big headstone called Lot. So how did the tombstone end up on 86th Street? Listen, we'll never know. Because it would have happened right around the turn of the century or sometime probably. What likely happened was once she was exhumed and put under that big monument, there was no need for her headstone, and some guy probably took it home and put it behind his shed, and I don't know, maybe he was going to sand it down and sell it back to a tombstone place or something. Who knows what he was going to do with it? He put it behind the shed, and probably once a month his wife would say to him, "Are you ever going to get rid of that tombstone?" And he just never did, and it stayed there for all those years. It's probably something like that. But Mary's story, remarkably, still wasn't even over, because a little bit more research turned up this book right here, which is the yearbook. It's the Woodhaven First Presbyterian Church, and it's kind of their history. It's an attempt to preserve their matter. It's just, this is an amazing book. We got this off of eBay, and I don't show the page here, but it's each copy. There's only 200 copies of this, and each copy has. I think we have copy number 98. Someone actually wrote it in by hand. 98 wrote it in. And in this book, it talks about the Woodhaven Chapel committee. And this was the first members. And see all these names here? Lott, Van Wicklen, Wyckoff. These are all names that are buried in the cemetery on 96th Street in Woodhaven. And Mary Eldert was part of this group. And what this group did was they started a sewing circle. All the women started a sewing circle because they were all part of the Woodhaven Chapel Association. And their business was to raise money to build a church, a Presbyterian church. And Mary Eldert was president. You see right here, she was president of the organization right from the very beginning. And they sewed things and they would sell things at different church fairs. And in 2 years, they raised almost $1,000, which was enough to build the Woodhaven Chapel. And this chapel was built in 1862. And this was built because of the efforts of Mary Eldert. She built this church. You know, it was funny. They didn't know why her tombstone was on 86th Street. Nobody knew. Probably, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, they saw it. They didn't have a good reason why. And then someone made up a really nasty slur about her. That she had cheated on her husband, and everyone just believes it. Every time I tell that story, everyone's like, "Oh boy, yeah." Everyone just believes it, but it wasn't true. And she actually did something that was amazing. She created this church here. And here's in 1890 they had to tear down the church. And they had to rebuild it. It was right around the time that she passed away. They tore down the original and they built this one, which is First Presbyterian Church of Woodhaven. And this church stayed for many years. But then what happened was in the 1940s, they had to tear this one down to build a new one because they were widening Woodhaven Boulevard. And here's the new church that they built. And it sits on 101st Avenue on Woodhaven Boulevard. You've all seen this church here. Now it's called the United Presbyterian Church. I've spoken to the gentlemen there. They know about Mary Eldert. They know about the history. They have that book. But here's this person that came to us as an unknown name, this unknown tombstone that just came. And this is why anytime I'm out in a bar or place or restaurant or someone comes up to me and wants to talk history and says, "Hey, I know something," I'm all ears, because you never know where these things are going to lead. Where this person came in and said, "I have a dead body in my yard," and it just led to the discovery of this person that did something that's lasting to this day. When you pass by that church now, you'll know that this was because of a woman named Mary Eldert, who started a sewing circle. And I don't think it's any coincidence that since this was discovered and since we found this out, there has not been a single sighting of Mary Eldert's ghost. And there's her stone there. So we have one more poll to close out the evening for all of you, and we're gonna do this one more time, and I'm going to ask this question of you again. You got 30 seconds, and it's starting now. And it's, where are you from? Are you from Woodhaven? Are you from Ozone Park? Or all of the above? So you got 30 seconds to pump your votes in there. Three, two, one. Pens down. All right, we still have some people there that say, "No, no matter what, I'm still from Woodhaven." And other people say, "No, no matter what, I'm from Ozone Park." And a lot of them say, "Hey, all above, because it's all good. It's all the same." There's our results there, and that was a lot of fun. So thank you very much for sticking around. This was a heck of a lot of fun. We're going to be we're going to be planning another good presentation next month. We haven't decided what we're going to do yet, but want to thank you all for coming by. We're actually stick around, those you want to. We're gonna stop.